Hey, Graham, thank you for joining with me today on this podcast. I'm thrilled to, do
No,
this with you.
you're welcome, General. Hope you're having a good day.
Yeah, yes. And how was your day?
Not too bad. A little busy, but trying to make the best of it. You know how it is.
And you are a writer, right? That's what you do for a living.
That's correct. Yeah. Have to do other things occasionally, but yes, that is something I'm working at consistently.
Okay, so what inspired you to be a writer? What was your motivation?
Okay. Um, so a couple of things are sort of part of the reason I'm a writer. Um, a big inspiration for me was my father, who always encouraged me to use my imagination to try and make something, not just, you know, work to do something to get a paycheck, but to try and, become more than what you can be, to really sort of push myself and try and make the most of any situation. And I learned from a fairly young age that I had quite an active imagination, and I was not shy about uh, coming up with these wild and weird stories, um, both to the amusement of friends and teachers and family and so on. It actually became something more than that, though, because as I grew older, I realized that it wasn't just my own um, stories that I really enjoyed, it was all stories. And that became something that I sort of followed in many respects, whether it's books, of which I do love to read, films, computer games. Though there's always a soft spot in my heart for the written word, I think that any sufficiently crafted story is what drives me on and what sort of can really grab me. Something that has well developed characters, developed scenario, an environment, a world that's been crafted. I think that's part of actually why I sort of came into some things like desktop role playing games like Dungeons and Dragons or White Wolf,
Hmm.
those sorts of things.
Wow, that's impressive, man. And I can resonate with you when it comes to books and movies. I would really love to
Mhm.
know what sort of movies do you like used to watch, or do you still like to watch?
Sure. So primarily try to um, keep my movies sort of fine-tuned is probably the best way I can put it. I'll watch pretty much anything, but something that I will want to buy and own is always going to be something that has a certain resonance with me. So in my DVD library or Blu-ray library, which always keep physical media, not into streaming. Um, there's sort of things like I've got the Lord of the Rings box set. I've got the Matrix, and I've got
Mm,
some other epic. I've got like Gladiator, and I've got Titanic, and I've got there's so many films that sort of stand out. But I've also got stuff like Dude, Where's My Car, which is just a really sort of lowbrow kind of funny, just dude bro kind of film. But the reason I watch it is because it resonates. There's something funny about it that kind of tugs at the child within me, and I still find amusing. Could be because I was exposed to it as a teenager, but it still has something of the humor about it, even though I can look at it now and still go, "Oh, that's so cringe." There's a lot of things there which kind of pull me in different directions. I have children's movies like there's The Last Unicorn, The Secret of Nim, um, Watership Down, even some of the sort of some of the darker films from the 70s and 80s that may not always be um, may not always be the best choice, especially around Easter with Watership Down. But let's kind of gloss over that and how traumatizing it has been for many children.
mm. Uh, I would really love to know the dark movies. Can you name some of those movies?
Oh yeah, I mean, you may not be aware, but Watership Down And I think other movies, including this, are things like, there's so Secret of Nim, probably a big one, NIMH, November India Mike Hotel, is a film from the 80s about mice. Kind of seems fairly straightforward, kind of sweet in a lot of ways, but it gets very dark very quickly. There is elements of humor, but there's also a certain layer for the adults that isn't quite noticeable as much for children. It's the
Mm,
same with something like I think there's like Land Before Time is one of those sort of 80s films that really disturbs a lot of kids when they watch it, but it's quite it's so well done that you can't help but enjoy it. Watership Down, the something of a classic. It's haunting in a lot of ways, and of course that's partially because it is based on a novel itself. Um, but there's a lot of dark elements in there. So face value, it's a story about rabbits. Fair enough, kind of wholesome, kind of pleasant. But then the rabbits start dying, and they're caught out from their warren by someone who does not want them there, have to find a new home. There is bunny on bunny violence, and it's not at all what you expect from a children's film. But I also like that because there are there's always going to be the soft element of kids entertainment. There's no harm in seeing a Disney film as a child, but I also
mm,
think that as you mature, there are elements of life that are inevitable and should not be hidden. I don't think you should, deliberately cause trauma, but that's where stories come in. They allow you to live vicariously through these other stories. You can sort of escape into this other world to develop your own experiences in a way that you would not normally be able to do so.
okay. Wow. So, like, are movies still a big part of your life at like even today?
Oh yes. So movies, computer games, books, all anything that has a developed story, I think can have a large entertainment value, but also can help with the element of humanity that searches
Hmm.
for another aspect of life. We only have our own unique bubble in which we exist. From the day that we're born, we have only our own perspective. Stories of every kind offer us windows into other perspectives. So whether that be, I don't know, Clash of the Titans with the basis on the ancient Greek legend of Perseus, if you're looking at Marvel movies, Thor and Iron Man and all the others.
Yeah.
Thor especially is based on, of course, the Viking mythology and
Hmm.
various Eddas um, that sort of survive from today. And certainly, I'll watch films that come out today. Personally, I find a lot of them are lacking substance that they used to.
Okay, makes sense. Like, I'm a huge movie buff. I tend to watch a lot of films on
Mhm.
weekends when I'm not doing anything. So I'm like, I
Sure.
even watch black and white films. So I would like to name some of my
Mhm.
favorite movies, and if you have seen it,
Yeah.
tell me your opinion regarding it. Like the first and the
Mhm.
foremost movie that I personally admire a lot is uh, 12 Angry Men. Have you?
Yeah. I'm aware of it. I haven't watched it personally, but I am aware of it. It's one of those things where I've some experience and qualifications within media, and while it's not something I've been able to watch, it is on my list. So that is something that intending to watch at some point.
Okay. Then the next movie that I'm not sure whether you watched it or not, Rare Window.
Not familiar with that, I'm afraid.
I guess the star in that movie is quite famous. Like he used to be in a lot
Hmm.
of classic movies. Vertigo, Vertigo. Have you watched that film? Vertigo.
Or Vertigo.
Yeah.
I'm aware of Vertigo. I saw the trailers for it and I was not interested, honestly.
Hmm.
It's the
Hmm.
Sandra Bullock one, yes?
Come again?
It's Sandra Bullock, isn't it?
No, no, no. It's not Sandra Bullock in that. Uh,
Oh, no, no. I'm thinking of the. Oh, you're talking about the Hitchcock film. Sorry,
yeah,
I'm
yes,
thinking of
yes. The one with James
the.
Stewart, I guess. Yeah, that's the name of the actor, James Stewart.
Yeah. Yes, I'm familiar with Vertigo as well. But yeah, I think it's. I've seen a couple of Hitchcock. I haven't quite seen Vertigo. I've seen The Birds and I've seen Psycho. Um,
Hmm,
but
Psycho.
yeah, yeah. Haven't got around to Vertigo yet.
Okay, and coming back to Greek mythologies, are you
Yeah.
familiar with that? The one with Oedipus Rex,
So the actual, sorry, the actual story of Oedipus with the
Oedipus
Sphinx
Rex,
and
Oedipus Rex, I guess,
okay. Um, I I think I've heard of the film. I don't recall having watched it previously.
because it's
Uh,
it's it's kind of like weird story, Greek mythology, I guess. In that,
mhm,
the king falls in love with his mother and he kills his
mhm.
father. That kind of thing was that.
Yes. So it is the I guess the adaptation of the Greek myth. Um, I'm familiar with the original myth. I'm not. I don't think I've actually seen that film though.
No, not the movie, Graham. No, like simply the story of it, Oedipus Rex.
Oh, yes. Yes, I'm familiar with the story of Oedipus.
Yeah, and
Which part are you interested in discussing? Because it's a fascinating story about how someone's desire for revenge can sort of cloud
hmm,
um, their intentions and uh, warp the results. And of course, the Greeks love a tragedy, so it's always going to be quite dark when they get a hold of things or they
yeah,
bring these things around.
that's true. And I guess the first book that was there was Gilgamesh, I guess. Are you
Mhm.
familiar with
Oh
that
yeah,
book?
the Battle of the story of Gilgamesh and Aniku, was it? I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Um, but yes, how the two of them sort of have those adventures, and again, it's
Yeah.
very interesting to see how far the sort of the world sort of continues in that their world continues around them.
Yeah, that's
Certainly a lot
true.
of mythology that's worth reading, definitely.
Hmm. As you spoke about Greek mythologies, these things came to my mind, so I thought I'll share it with you.
Yeah, yeah.
And recently, I got the chance to connect with a lot of writers, and the common book that was the topic of discussion was Fahrenheit 451. Uh,
Yeah. Not surprising considering current climate. That I think and 1984 probably resonate quite strongly.
hmm.
Though there's the other one that probably would be familiar as well.
Animal Farm.
No, New Order, or I can't remember what it's called now. Oh, that's going to bug me. Oh, and now I remember the film I'm thinking of is Gravity from Sandra Bullock. So that's not helpful. But that popped in there to remind me. Why I thought Vertigo and Gravity were in any way the same, I don't know. Um,
It happens. It happens. It's all right.
yeah.
I guess you are a big fan of
And
Sandra Bullock.
I just recalled it quite a bit. I'm not entirely sure why I got that mixed up. I mean, she's a decent actress.
Yeah, I
I'm
admire
trying to
her.
recall.
I admire her,
Yeah,
the way she acts, her beauty, and the her comic timing. Everything is like top notch.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's not what we're here to talk about. But yeah, I apologize for sort of derailing things at that point.
it's all right. It's all right. Yeah, so coming back to Fahrenheit
Brave
451.
New World, that's the other one thing. So the ones that are most likely going to be sort of resonating at the moment, Fahrenheit 451, as you're advising, also 1984 and Brave New World. I think those three at the moment, I think very much are going to resonate with today's audiences, just because of how concerning and dystopian the world looks, but
Hmm.
also how kind of it's somewhat matching our current world. But let's not dwell too much on that one.
And I'm also into the when it comes to books, like when it comes to mystery and thriller. I like the
Yeah.
I cherish reading the books of Agatha Christie. Uh, have
Mhm.
you like read any
Solid
of her
choice.
books?
I'm not a big fan of the murder mysteries,
Hmm.
although I have read excerpts at various points, and I do think that she's very talented at what she does. Um, Again, not really my thing, and it's nothing to do with Agatha Christie herself. I can admire her as a writer, um, but it's just the genre itself I'm not particularly interested in. It's like crime stories I'm not particularly interested in. And again, there's nothing that's saying it can't be well done. You know, Godfather's a fantastic film, but I think that the story itself is just less in my focus. So
Hmm.
things like Agatha Christie, which is certainly interesting, you know, murder mystery, you know, find out who done it. Um, it's an interesting style, and I've got to admire the quality of the writing. Like I said, there's no doubts about that. It's just not something I'm particularly interested in myself. But
Hmm.
fair play to you. She's very good.
Yeah, definitely. She's great in her work, and most of her books are adapted into movies.
Mhm.
Yeah, so even the
And probably the
movies
most
are
famous being Run the Orient Express.
yeah. And what are you currently like? Which is the book that you are currently reading, Graham?
So at the moment, I'm currently rereading through the Dresden Files. I think I'm currently on, I think book three. But the Dresden Files are one of those sort of fun stories, and it includes modern day fantasy. So that's something I'm quite entertained by. It's
Hmm.
kind of somewhat influential in my work, but you know, it's very well done.
Wow. And what are your some of your go-to books that you can read gazillion of times and you can never get tired of it?
Mhm. So I tend to read stories that are longer than a single book. Um, because of that, just because of the way that they can, a talented author can build a world and then continue a long form story. So there's three sort of series that I tend to reread a lot. The first is Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings. Um,
Hmm.
I do find his style can be a bit stilted, and he does focus a little too much on some perhaps irrelevant details, but he is the father of modern day fantasy for a reason. I know some people will try and argue C.S. Lewis and a few others, but for me, it's always been Tolkien. Um, I also read the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind, and there's numerous books in that series. But they are very well written, and they have. I think I really enjoy his characters more than anything else because they are well-rounded individuals that can surprise you but you can also reflect and say, no, that is still within that person's character. And you can understand how they get from, point A to point B. It's well written enough and the characters are developed enough that there's a number of different directions they can take. And while you are still entertained and, you know, you are carried along with the story itself, the characters are built in such a way that you go with it because you like the characters themselves, and even bit characters who are in your hand for one another can all be very entertaining. Finally, the book series I think that provides the best built world that I've sort of encountered and still remains entertaining would be Robert Jordan with the Wheel of Time books. Um, Mainly because while there are some characters in there I think required more uh, time being written than others. I do feel that the world that is created is so well written, so well crafted. You could easily insert any number of characters in your own mind and go traveling, and you would know what happens where. Because it really is. It is so well developed, so well crafted that the world itself becomes more real in some aspects than anything else. And that
Hmm.
world is intended as being cyclical. So, theoretically, it could be part of our world or, on the so-called wheel of time as time continues in the circle. Um, so it's certainly an interesting concept, and I think there's enough there to work with that you're always picking up something new. So definitely, I think those three are my favorites I can always go back to. There are others that I think are very entertaining as well. The Dresden Files, for example, and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is fantastic, and I could probably just spend another half hour just listing off books that I enjoy reading. Um, but yeah, there's certainly a good portion out there that I think are of high quality, and of course I try and emulate that in some ways, and I think I've been fairly successful, even though not quite got the numbers of sales to prove that yet. Emphasis on the yet.
You will. And you have worked in many companies. From the profile, I got the glimpse
Mhm.
that you have worked in multiple companies, right?
Yep, that's correct.
So, what sort of experience have you got from changing jobs, and what sort of life advice you can give to my viewers?
Sure. So I think first and foremost is that when you're a child, very few people know what they want to do with their lives. You can have hobbies, you can have things that you would like to do, and whether or not they can be a profitable endeavor for your life is usually not easily seen. There are ways you can turn your hobbies into something you can make money from. I like stories. I ended up making stories and turned them into something fairly skilled, if I say so myself. And it's something that is becoming more in line with my passions. But don't be afraid if you're even in your 20s or your 30s and you still don't know what you want to do with your life, because it doesn't always happen straight away, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I do think that as long as you want to keep going, you can find a way to do something.
Hmm.
And certainly set yourself goals if you can. Don't get too hung up on the job that you currently have, because at the end of the day, a job is a job. It's how you put food on the table, how you keep a roof over your head. It's not who you are. And I think that has definitely changed societally from what it used to be. I could say, oh, yeah, I worked in a call center, but, in my heart, I was always a storyteller. So don't get too bothered about what you need to do to make money. Don't stress too much about, you know, things that you can't help, but always try and keep yourself centered, always be honest with yourself, always be willing to listen to the voice that you have inside you. Even if you can't do anything in the now, it's still a good reason for you to go push yourself to do something more. And at the same time, if that voice is saying, hang on, we need a break, there's nothing wrong with that as well. Okay,
Hmm.
mental health is a serious thing. I think that a lot of people set high expectations that they can't reach. But that said, that doesn't mean you can't dream.
Hmm. Wow. Yes. Wow. Wow. Thank you, Graham. I guess I won't hold you any longer for that. This has been a really insightful conversation, and I hope that my viewers will take a lot out of this podcast.
And I hope so. And if you are interested, my book is called Eidolon, and it's available through Jumpmaster Press. It's also available on Amazon. Just search for the name Graham Page if you're struggling.
Oh, wait. I'll show it to them right now. This is the book of my
Certainly.
guest. Yeah. So go check out his book, and if possible, buy it. And I'm sure it's gonna be amazing. Second part is
Leave a
coming
review.
soon.
Always good to get. Yes, the second part is coming soon.
Wow. All right, Graham. On that note, I guess let's call it a day, and we'll catch up soon.
Wonderful talking to you, Jamal.
Take care, man.
Have a beautiful day. Thank you.